What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content here on my channel, then make sure you hit the like button and make sure you hit subscribe so you can help decide what direction the content on my channel goes in the foreseeable future. So previously we talked about the idea of the Century getting a movie, and how that film would play out, how people would respond to it. We touched a little bit on the origin of the Century, different things like that. In this video, I wanted to talk about Moon Knight. Of course, I said I'd talk about Moon Knight in the last one, so we're going to talk about it in this one. But the more I thought about it, the more I kind of realized I wouldn't necessarily give Moon Knight a movie. I'd give Moon Knight a Netflix series, and a lot of you guys really seem to feel the same way. I was looking at the comments, with regards to Moon Knight, and you guys are like, give him a Netflix series. And that seems to be the really popular trend, actually. I was doing some Google searching, and a lot of people were saying they really wanted to see a Moon Knight show, which I think is actually a genius idea. The cool thing about Marvel's Netflix line is that it is part and parcel to the whole Disney, Marvel brand, but it's also separate in the sense that it allows Marvel to take a far darker tone with their characters than they do with anything else. You probably wouldn't see the Punisher running around and like shooting people in the head in a movie with the Disney banner in front of it. You're probably not going to see that. I mean, certainly if the Netflix series for Punisher translated into a film, it would be rated R. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have seen that or finished it or what have you, but by the time you get to the end of the show, it is gruesome and it is violent and it's amazing. I love it for that reason. But despite the fact that it's got really every telltale of Punisher match thrown in, for the most part, it has to remain isolated. The same thing with Daredevil. But the fact that it's separate is what makes it cool and makes it unique. And so Moon Knight, I think, would be this just incredible addition to the Netflix line of stories. And here's a reason why. On the whole, the Marvel Cinematic Universe focuses on characters that are more tangible and more realistic, which is to say, they sort of adopt the Valiant Comics mantra, the world outside your window. Watching the Marvel Netflix series, you almost imagine you could be walking down the streets of New York right now in the real world. You could walk through Hell's Kitchen and you could come across Jessica Jones, you could come across Luke Cage, you could come across Daredevil or the Punisher or somebody like that, because where they're a little more fantasy-like when it comes to the comics, in the Netflix series, they're a lot more grounded and a lot more realistic. And so because of that, it's kind of cool. I mean, Luke Cage, for example, in the comics is strong. He's not Incredible Hulk strong, but he's a lot stronger than you saw in the Netflix series. In the Netflix series, his strength was toned down for the most part, but his impenetrable skin, his bulletproof skin, is one of the things that made it kind of cool, because that's a part they just basically kept, and it's really a hallmark of his character. With Moon Knight, it's much the same way. Originally, Moon Knight was created by a guy named Doug Mink and Ron Perlin for a line of comics called Werewolf by Night, which was really more of like the Marvel horror brand. And it's kind of interesting. Back in the 1950s, when science fiction comics were all the rage, Atlas Comics, who came after Timely Comics from the 1940s, but was the predecessor to Marvel in the 1960s, sort of the in-between publication, they were publishing a lot of like science fiction and horror comics before Spider-Man, Thor, Iron Man, all those guys really took off in popularity. And so because of that, Werewolf by Night maintained a lot of those science fiction / horror themes, and there were other characters who did as well, Morbius, the living vampire, different things like that. But Moon Knight was created to really just kind of tie into the Werewolf by Night thing. But what I think Moon Knight brings to the table isn't necessarily the depiction of Batman in the Marvel line. It's really the multiple personalities that he has. One of the big arguments, and I've made this argument before on both sides, to be honest, I've kind of walked the fence, even though I probably shouldn't. Moon Knight fans hate me for doing it. Really, Moon Knight in a lot of ways is kind of like Batman, but he's not like Batman. I mean, he's like Batman insofar as he uses, razor sharp pieces of equipment, different things like that, kind of like batarangs or shaped like little, moons, different things like that, but like throws them at people and so on and so forth. But he's not nearly on the same level as a detective. He's wealthy, but that's a whole other personality. And that's where things get kind of cool. For the character of Moon Knight, he is a guy named Mark Spector, or at least it's one of the personalities he has. And Mark Spector was originally a mercenary that basically survived an attempted killing. And he was granted a second chance to become an avatar on Earth for an Egyptian god named Khonshu. And the result is that he sort of came back and he, fights crime, or, as an avatar of Khonshu, carries out his weird campaigns every once in a while whenever Khonshu gets involved. But he's basically got 4 distinct personalities. There is Moon Knight, which is the crime fighter. There's Mark Spector, the mercenary. There is Jake Lockley, the cab driver. And then there's Steve Grant, the millionaire or the billionaire? I think it's the millionaire. But, you basically have all these different personalities that are intertwined. And the result is that more often than not, overall, the character sometimes doesn't know which one of those is real. He doesn't know which one he actually is. Is he really Steve Grant and all the other personalities are fake? Is he really Jake Lockley and the other personalities are fake? And that's the question that readers are posed all the time in his comics. Which one of these people is he really? And that's kind of the cool thing, because it really has these tones of like Legion, for example. Legion on FX was an amazing show. I mean, really the Shadow King aspect was kind of cool, but it was interesting because you didn't really know what was going on. And it was really more of a puzzle. And that's one of the things that people like. They love watching shows where they kind of have to simultaneously figure out what's going on while also enjoying the evolution of the puzzle. And that's one of the cool things that Moon Knight could bring to the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the form of the Netflix line. You pick up with these different personalities, you pick up with these different things that are going on. And at first, it might seem as though he's just doing detective work and he's just using these for the purpose of, hey, I'm Jake Lockley because I have to keep my ear to the ground and know when troubles are brewing. I'm going to be Steve Grant because I have to fight corporate crime. Mark Spector, the mercenary, because I have to keep my skills maintained. And I'm going to have all that consolidated under the banner of Moon Knight, who's going to fight crime. But as the show progresses, you begin to realize he gets lost in his own personalities, that he begins to question which one he really is. And then as you watch the show, you start to question it as well. Well, which one of these personalities was true? When this person was born into the world, what name did their parents give them? Did they give them the name of Mark Spector, Jake Lockley, or Steve Grant? Which one of these is actually him? And while they are all the same person, it does create this really interesting, intricate web of just confusion and interest and puzzle solving and all that kind of stuff. And it all makes sense at the end. The dust will settle and everything will make sense when the show is over. I wouldn't imagine it'd be a very good idea to leave people on cliffhangers because you would kill interest in the character at that point. But it does create some pretty interesting things because with Moon Knight not really having any traditional powers to speak of, which is to say he can't fly or anything like that, with him basically being a street level character, he fits right in alongside Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and Iron Fist and all those different guys. He fits in perfectly with all those characters. And so again, I think it'd be kind of cool. I think it'd be really, really, really interesting to say nothing of the fact that his costume looks amazing. That's one of my favorite things to see. I'll go to comic book conventions and you'll have those guys. They'll have a white mask and they'll have the moon-shaped crescent on the mask, and they'll have like a white suit and they'll have the white shoes and the white gloves and just, completely dressed in white. And it looks amazing. I've seen some where it was homemade and it looked cool. And then I've seen some where it was professionally made and it looked incredible. So there's all different types of cosplay with that kind of stuff, which is one of my favorite things to see whenever it is that I go to cons. I love seeing, the lengths people will go to adapt their favorite characters into, costumes they can wear. But the fact remains, I think that Moon Knight can really bring a breath of fresh air, because I think for a lot of people, they look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe and they say, okay, we've had the same characters on Netflix for quite some time. Initially, it started out with Daredevil, then it went into Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and, Iron Fist, and each character teased the other's appearances. We didn't know if they were actually going to show up. We had Daredevil season 2 that teased, the idea of Punisher getting his own series, or at least Marvel kind of toying with it and then realizing how popular the Punisher was, launching his own series. But for the most part, it's just the same characters. It's almost like a nobody else allowed club. It's kind of like this inner circle. And I think that people look at the Netflix arm in the same way they look at the movie arm, in the sense that they basically look around and they say, we need something new. We need something fresh. We're getting kind of tired of seeing the same old characters doing the same old thing. We want something just new, dynamic, and fresh. That's why Guardians of the Galaxy succeeded so well. Guardians of the Galaxy was a great film. I mean, James Gunn is an incredible filmmaker, but it was also so different from everything we saw. It took place out in space. We saw different parts of the Marvel Universe we'd never seen before in movie form. We learned that there's a much bigger universe out there outside of just whatever it is that's going on Earth. We saw all these different cool concepts, all sort of brought together. Alien races, the Infinity Stones were fleshed out even more than they had been before. All kinds of stuff was going on. And so in my mind, even if it's not necessarily on as grand of a scale as Guardians of the Galaxy, Moon Knight could definitely freshen things up a bit, provide a little bit of vibrancy. Well, not really vibrancy, because he's not like a happy character. He's kind of a miserable guy and his stories are pretty dark. But you guys understand what I'm saying. Like, it could definitely freshen things up a bit and inject some new blood into the Marvel universe, which I think at this point is really kind of needed. I think we really need something fresh and something new. That's why I'm so looking forward to Black Panther. Eric Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan is one of the best actors that I've ever seen. He's incredible, and I have no doubt he's going to be absolutely amazing in that role. Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel, whatever, awaits us after the events of Infinity War and Infinity Gauntlet. But again, let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. I'm kind of curious to see what you guys come up with. You guys really seem passionate about the idea of seeing like Moon Knight in shows, or on Netflix, or in movie form, or something along those lines. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this whole thing, about Moon Knight. And with that being said, guys, we're gonna go ahead and bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.